right, we're back on Changemakers. I'm joined today by BJ Murphy. Hello, BJ. How are you?
I'm great, Jim. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for being here. I got a nomination for you from someone we both know, and he mentioned all the great things that you were doing. But our audience, I'm venturing to guess, is probably unfamiliar with you. So can you share a little bit about who you are, what you've done in your professional career, and then we'll kind of morph into where you are now?
Yeah, so I appreciate that. Again, my name is BJ Murphy from a town called Kinston, North Carolina, about 20,000 people. More or less grew up here, from buying baby clothes to fish and you name it, public high schools, local university. Came back home, got involved in my future mother-in-law's restaurant business. That led to helping to manage downtown Kinston's about 30 square blocks of our community, all the way to getting into sales, where I was a commission-only sales guy. So through that process, I got to learn a lot about my community. I ended up running for office for mayor of my community at 25. Nobody expects a 25-year-old to win in a town of 20,000 people. And so, of course, I didn't win. But out of 4,000 some hundred votes cast, I think I only lost by 300. And in other words, what it showed me about our community is that there was a small little inkling of our community that realized that, hey, maybe a new direction is possible. So 4 years later, I decided to run for again. One, became the youngest mayor our town has ever had, and served for 8 years. And in the process, started a really cool business that I'm sure we'll talk about here in just a moment.
Yeah, that's great. So your involvement in the town, is it Kingston or Kinston?
Kinston, Kinston, Kinston.
Perfect.
We dropped the G during the American Revolution. That is a fun fact about our community. It used to be Kingston.
Yeah, so you can no longer be the OG, right?
That's right.
the missing G. So BJ, you were inspired to run for mayor, and we're going to talk a little bit about what the organization that you built is doing, but I want to talk about you for just a second and why you felt inspired to run for mayor, what your goals were. And I don't mean from a political standpoint, but what
Right.
you were wanting to do in your community.
And I appreciate that. Look, in the politics of it, basically, whether someone's a Democrat, Republican, when it comes to local issues, and I'm talking about small town USA, most of our country, the issues aren't identified by a national political party. The issues we deal with are street resurfacing, water and sewer, crime, good schools, electric bills, and the property tax rate, those equipment for our firefighters and EMS. Those are the issues that we deal with on a local basis. So what kind of inspired me to run is, I guess what I saw in our community was the need for a little bit different direction at the time. And I thought, you know what, I can't be on the sidelines and complain. We call people nowadays the keyboard warriors. They'll get on social media on their cell phones and just talk a lot of have a lot of criticism about local government or even national politics, but not give back, not put their name on a ballot, or not vote, or not give money to a campaign, or not volunteer for a campaign. All the things that you can do to be active in changing that government that you want to change. And so I said, well, it's only $10. What do I have to lose at 25? And so I decided to do it. Some of the things I worked on during my tenure, though, is really neat. When you get in these kind of positions, you work on a lot of big projects that sometimes you don't see to fruition until after you're out of office, just the nature of how government works. But from placing major water sewer lines to building I call it we're the city of Kinston, the capital C, but building the community of Kinston, the people. So like if we had something to happen bad, like maybe a shooting, which isn't a normal occurrence, it happens a handful of times a year, of course. But when those kind of things happen, that there was some mechanism of helping the community cope by bringing the religious community involved in it. Maybe it was a prayer vigil or something, to helping build up the local Crime Stoppers, making sure that was had an active board, had money in the bank, making sure that our planning policies were such that we reduce the concentration possibilities of crime. Those are all the kind of things we really got to work on. And it wasn't until after I got out of office that I realized how much time I was spending day to day or week to week on all these issues. And so it was a lot of fun. And if I had to do my life all over again, I would do it the exact same way. It was a blast, and I love giving back to my community. I'd encourage other people certainly to vote, but consider putting your name up or giving somebody some money or volunteering for a campaign if you want to see that change in your community as well.
That's great. You and I had a conversation before we went online here just about I guess what really inspired you to take action in your current venture and the impact that it's already had on your community. And I'll share with the audience, and I've talked about this before, but one of the reasons why Changemakers even exists is really born out of a frustration that there's so much negativity portrayed everywhere, from the national media to even local media,
Right.
or news outlets, I'll say, moreover. But there was nobody really telling the good. So we got inspired to share all the good stories that were happening. And when I talked to you, it was like these puzzle pieces just falling into place. And I'm like, that's what we wanted.
Right.
So can you share a little bit about what you've put together and the impact that it's already had on your community?
Absolutely. And so, Jim, when I was serving as mayor, one thing that I realized, because I was serving from 09 to 17, when Facebook started to become a household name, up until even now, it's really saturated in terms of the number of people who are involved in it. And so basically what I did is I realized that sometimes our local news, whether it's the TV stations or the print, maybe wouldn't carry a story that I thought, or maybe wouldn't tell the story the way I thought it should be done, because they had an ulterior ad-driven motive behind their reporting. And so I started by that almost. I was almost forced to go to social media to try to tell my side of the story, or tell our community story in a different light. And so doing that over all these years, when we had a major crisis happen, it was a major hurricane in 2016 called Hurricane Matthew. It brought a tremendous amount of rain across North Carolina. We've got, I think, eight or 9 inches of rain here over a very short period of time. It created the largest flood we've ever had here. People were displaced, some lives were lost, homes definitely damaged. But in that process, using social media was really important. But I also realized during all that maybe I had a skill set that could help small businesses, nonprofits, events, to also figure out how to take your message, take your marketing ideas, and apply it to the social media realm. So I started a company called Magic Mile Media to do just that. In the process of all that, though, it was like, well, maybe we can take the same digital social media philosophies on the how you approach social media and how you communicate to the public, to your customer or consumer or prospective client, or your neighbors. How could we apply that to the local news industry? Most local newspapers are still print across the country. They have a digital product, but you still can walk up to the local restaurant and there's like a vending machine where you put a bunch of quarters in, and you're lucky if you get some good quality news there, because these local newspapers have been bought up by corporations across the country, and they've merged. And as they've merged, the news has become more regional, state, and national. So most headlines have like a President Biden or Vice President Harris on it, or the governor of our state. And you're lucky if one of the top headlines has local in nature. So we started a local news company called News. News is named after the river here in Eastern North Carolina. It's a free publication. So I said, I want it to be absolutely free. In fact, we don't have no pop-up ads. We have ads, but none of those annoying pop-up ads on our site. And we grew very rapidly. We surpassed the local print publication subscriber rate in 6 months. We're now, in our town of 20,000, we now have 5,000 daily subscribers. Our Facebook following now is 14,000. We do live feeds of football game, the high school football games. We're working right now on the report of the local elections. People are filing for mayor and city council right now, so we're putting out that news. and we're doing it for free to the community. Is supported, underwritten by local advertisers, but it's free to the community, free to subscribers. And we've also taken that model and helped some other folks with it as well. So it's a lot of fun helping our community in that way.
Yeah, can we talk for just a minute, BJ, about the feedback that you've gotten from people? And this was not like I didn't even know this question was going to pop up, but as I heard you talk, when you have 14,000 subscribers on social media,
Mhm.
that's a huge percentage of the population. I'm sure some of it's outside of
Right.
your local area,
Hmm.
but the 5,000 daily subscribers to have a 25% subscription rate
Hmm.
is unheard of in your industry.
Right.
So what is some of the feedback that you're getting from people on what your product or your company has meant to them?
Well, it's actually been kind of refreshing for the community, and it certainly is a little bit of, I hope it's not ego or vanity coming through, but it's people were just upset at the idea that the local news wasn't truly local anymore. So by refocusing on our communities, our blocks, our schools, the roads, our police officers, emergency management folks, by focusing back on what's happening in our backyard, little Johnny hit a grand slam to win the game, right? By focusing on these types of stories, we're able to reconnect the readers, who are our citizens, our community, back to what's really happening with their neighbors, maybe across town or maybe on the other block over, that just didn't know about it. And so making that connection for the community has helped the community. So, like, for example, it wasn't long after we started our local news business here that we actually had another hurricane. And our small office, typically in the day to day, people focused. You see some team members here, but typically day to day focused on news because I've got other clients on another side of the business. But we have about three, maybe four people day to day working the business. Well, during a hurricane or flood, we couldn't have everybody here. And this was right when we started. And so I had people, some of my team members on different sides of the town or in another county, and so we were getting flooded ourselves, with questions about, is this road open, or what is the wind speed, or how much rain are you getting? And so we even started a Facebook group that we branded for our company. We call it We Reports New Snooze. And it allowed, so we just said, hey, if you had this problem, go to this Facebook page. And the idea is that neighbors can engage neighbors can help neighbors, that somebody who lived on Cary Road may know that Vernon Avenue is not the road to take because there was a tree blocking it. And that wasn't something that
Right.
I would know from my office because I'm not there. And so by allowing the community to help the community, it brought the community closer together using a free tool again for them. That our only benefit of it was we're moderating it because we don't want a lot of foul, nasty stuff happening there. So we don't allow the bickering, but it allows community to have a constructive dialogue on issues.
I think that's great. BJ, I'm gonna in these last 30 seconds, I want to give it to you. What I'd like to know is I'm assuming people that are watching this are going to get inspired by some of the things that you've said. And we've already gotten that feedback on other change makers. They hear the
Mhm.
interviews, they hear what's going on, they go, man, I want to get involved, but they don't know where to start.
Right.
And you've mentioned a couple things from a political perspective,
Right.
but a lot of people are like, no, I
Right.
don't want to talk politics,
I
right?
get
So
that.
for the people that are looking to do something to make an impact on their community, where would you advise them to start, or what advice do you have for them?
Well, first, your voice matters, and that the community can learn from your perspective on an issue. I mean, people even in my own office, we disagree on issues all the time. So much that we create a vlog series called The Journey that we post on YouTube and Facebook and stuff. It's just kind of the behind the scenes of what happens in our office every day. I would just encourage people, to, whether it is a church or whether it is the PTA or whether it is the Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or the soccer team, to, one, show up, be present, understand that this next generation is watching you, and that your voice really does matter, that you have value you can give, whether you're good at speaking in front of a group, or whether you can raise money, or whether you know how to make the best door wreath and sell it for a nonprofit for $50 or whatnot to help them raise money. That each person has a talent, a skill that they can give back to their community, whether it's for the pet shelter or for the Red Cross, or for a planning appointment, a planning committee for the community, or it is running for office. Whatever it is, that there's a role for you to play, and I really believe no matter what your skill set, that everybody has a role to play and should.
That's fantastic. BJ, thanks so much for being our guest here today. And tell everybody how they can find you online.
All right. So you can find me. My website is bjmurphy360.com, and you can connect with me from TikTok, to Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. They're all there. It's bjmurphy360. And my company's magicmilemedia.com. And so there's a lot you can find out about our team, some of the background, connect to some of those videos. But regardless of whether it's a for-profit, nonprofit, or whether you just want to call, get some help or advice, or whether you want to do a business deal, I love helping people, and I'd love to help you.
BJ, thank you so much for being with us. Guys, stay tuned. There's a lot more Changemakers. If you like what you heard from BJ, you're going to love what we have coming up next. It's all good news. So, BJ, thanks for being with us. More Changemakers coming up soon.